Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling a profound, slightly unsettling, but honestly, strangely beautiful paradox of human existence. Have you ever noticed how we can experience the ultimate, world-shattering existential terror of our own mortality, only to almost immediately brush it off to worry about completely mundane things? It's a wild psychological pivot. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're standing in the old graveyard of Drayan Kalan. It's this small, rugged village right near the Suleiman Mountains in Pakistan. You're standing there under the deep shade of these ancient peepal trees, attending a funeral. And what you're witnessing in that exact moment, staring right down into the open earth, is a violent, profound interruption of the ordinary. Death has officially arrived. It's a rupture so severe that it completely suspends the entire architecture of your reality. The unthinking momentum of your daily life, the emails you haven't answered, that argument you had yesterday, all of it violently halts. The sheer, undeniable fact of mortality strips away every single comforting narrative we usually wrap around ourselves. But here is where we hit that massive paradox I mentioned earlier. Why does that profound, world-shattering rupture fade away so incredibly fast? Why is it that just a few short hours after the earth is thrown and the crowd disperses, life just resumes? We experience this agonizing, all-consuming awareness of our inevitable end, and then, inexplicably, we go home and catch ourselves genuinely stressing out about what to make for dinner or getting super annoyed that the Wi-Fi is being slow. Seriously, if you have ever felt guilty for making that rapid pivot, you are absolutely not alone. Uncovering the cognitive and social mechanics of that very pivot is our entire mission today. And to understand this, we've got to look at our first layer of defense.
Section 1. The biological defense. Biology of the monkey mind.
Surviving the awareness of death actually requires some intense psychological hardwiring. You really can't understand how we avoid existential terror without first accepting that the human mind is absolutely not a static vault. What's super fascinating here is how deep philosophical traditions explain our biology. Buddhist psychology identifies this as kapicita, or the monkey mind. It is the baseline state of human consciousness, a relentless, unyielding flux, just leaping from a random memory to a physical sensation to some vague anxiety about tomorrow. Even Friedrich Nietzsche pointed out that thoughts arrive when they wish, not when we wish. You could be exerting a Herculean effort to hold on to the purity of your grief, and suddenly a memory of a fast food commercial just drifts across your mental screen uninvited. And while that feels like a massive moral failure, it's actually a biological necessity. Think of human consciousness literally like a smartphone algorithm that you absolutely cannot turn off. But here's the catch. It's hard-coded for survival, not for contemplation. You might desperately want to pause the feed to obsess over your own existential fragility, but the algorithm just won't let you. It forces a refresh. Your biology forces the screen to jump. You get a notification from your stomach that you need calories, or there's a drop in temperature forcing you to go find a sweater. Metabolic reality simply doesn't care about your existential crisis. Hunger will inevitably interrupt sorrow, because if it didn't, well, the hardware would die. But biology only explains why our minds bounce around randomly.
Section 2. The social shield. Society's elevator music.
To really understand our highly organized, systematic evasion of death, we need a second layer of defense, because we don't face death in a vacuum, right? We face it surrounded by deeply entrenched social structures. Back in his 1927 masterwork, Being in Time, Martin Heidegger introduced this concept of das Man, which essentially translates to the they. Now, the they is not some shadowy government conspiracy or an elite cabal. It's the invisible, anonymous, normative structure of everyday life. It's the gravity of the crowd. It's the logic of, well, everybody knows that, which dictates exactly how we act and feel, relieving us of the unbearable burden of constantly inventing our own interpretations of reality from scratch.
The thing is, the they cannot just deny death completely because it's way too obvious. So instead, it tranquilizes us using a very specific machinery of evasion, broken down into 3 tools. First up, chatter. Chatter turns death into true crime podcasts and celebrity news. It basically domesticates the void by turning it into familiar, digestible content. Second, curiosity. Now, this isn't the noble pursuit of science. It's a restless distraction engine. It's the endless doom scroll for novelty that ensures our attention never actually settles in one place. And third, ambiguity. This is the social fog where death is acknowledged, sure, but treated as something that might happen decades from now, completely diffusing any existential urgency. And this brilliantly illustrates the illusion. Chatter is the difference between reading a Wikipedia article about ocean salinity versus standing at the edge of the real, terrifying, pitch-black ocean at midnight. The Wikipedia article keeps you perfectly insulated from the dread. I know, when you lay it out like that, the they sounds incredibly dystopian. But the they is actually a desperately needed coping mechanism. Think of society as a 100-story skyscraper just hurtling through space, and you are standing inside a metal elevator box suspended by a few braided cables. If you were acutely, vividly aware of the terrifying physics of your situation every single second of the day, you'd be hyperventilating on the floor. You couldn't commute, you couldn't plan for retirement, you couldn't function at all. So society pipes in smooth, unremarkable elevator music. The they is that music. It is the anesthetic that makes social reality possible. But this elevator music cannot cover up everything forever.
Section 3. The Rupture. Confronting the Nothing.
So what happens when that elevator cable violently snaps? What happens when we find ourselves right back in that graveyard? A funeral is one of those incredibly rare, unavoidable collisions where the tranquilizing machinery completely breaks down. You stand before the open earth and you confront the nothing, the terrifying groundlessness underlying all of our comfortable social constructs. And right here, we really must make a crucial philosophical distinction. We are not talking about fear. Fear has a definite object in the world, like a wild animal or losing your job. You can fight or run away from fear. Anxiety, or angst, has no object. You literally can't point to what's making you anxious, because what is making you anxious is the world itself slipping away. The illusion breaks. You feel entirely uncanny, entirely not at home in your own life. In this intense state of anxiety, existential philosophy maps out 3 absolute characteristics of death that suddenly become viscerally, undeniably real to you. First, it is your own most possibility, meaning it is intensely, exclusively yours. A colleague can cover your shift at work, sure, but absolutely no one can substitute for you in the act of non-existence. Second, it is non-relational, completely severing every single tie you have to the world. And third, it is not to be outstripped. You cannot outplan it, you cannot negotiate with it. It is the final, unmovable horizon.
Let's actually look a little closer at that second characteristic. The idea that death is non-relational. Imagine you are an actor in a deeply immersive theater production. You have your elaborate costume on, you've memorized your script perfectly, and you are genuinely embodying your character, interacting with your colleagues on stage. But then, suddenly, the stage catches real fire. In that fraction of a second, your costume means absolutely nothing. You are no longer the Duke of Wellington, or a CEO, or a debtor. Your relationship to the other actors evaporates instantly. You are all just fragile biological organisms facing an ultimate end. Death is that fire. It strips away our protective social identities completely. Sustaining that agonizing state of clarity demands immense courage. But let's be honest, the urge to flee right back to the comforting arms of society is overwhelming.
Section 4. The inevitable return, falling back into everydayness. Within hours of that world-shattering anxiety, the immediate demands of existence rush right back in. Your mind fills up with the grocery list and unanswered text messages again, and we often feel guilty for this, right? But the existential framework offers a profound reassurance here. So the crucial point is, returning to everydayness is absolutely not a moral failure, and it's not a betrayal of the dead. It's a structural necessity. We experience Geworfenheit, or thrownness, meaning we are thrown into a world that already exists, with economic realities and social norms we literally have to navigate just to survive. Thus, we experience verfallen, or falling. This isn't a theological sin, it's just the natural gravitational pull of social reality drawing us back into the crowd. If you constantly felt the full weight of the abyss, you'd be paralyzed. You wouldn't be able to function at all. But if we literally must fall back into the crowd to avoid madness, is the whole pursuit of authenticity impossible?
Section 5. The Rhythm of Finitude. Finding Authenticity.
Okay, authenticity is not about retreating to a cave somewhere in the woods. Both the authentic and the inauthentic person have to go back to work and navigate the daily chatter. The difference lies entirely in what they bring back from the rupture. The inauthentic person returns and completely forgets the metal box exists. They treat the anxiety as a temporary glitch, rushing back to the elevator music and acting as if they have infinite time. But the authentic person returns bearing what the framework calls a trace of the nothing. They hear the elevator music, sure, but they know it's just music. They do their routines with a profound background awareness of their own limits.
Holding on to that trace without letting it completely crush you is a really delicate balance. Imagine you are on a once-in-a-lifetime 7-day vacation at a beautiful resort. You know with absolute certainty your flight leaves on Sunday. The inauthentic approach is to delude yourself into believing you actually live at the resort, just completely ignoring the return ticket. The paralyzing approach is to sit in your hotel room weeping because Sunday is coming. But the authentic approach? That's carrying the trace. It's that quiet background knowledge that Sunday is looming. And because you are acutely aware the trip is finite, the sunset on Tuesday looks 1,000 times more vibrant. The dinner on Wednesday tastes infinitely better. Finitude doesn't destroy the meaning of the trip. It is the very thing that creates it.
And this creates a truly beautiful, lifelong rhythm. It's basically the breathing cycle of human consciousness. Step 1 is everydayness, our baseline absorption in normal routines. Step 2 is the rupture, the funeral, where the music suddenly stops and we confront the breakdown. Step 3 is the return, the absolute biological and social necessity of going back to our metabolism and the marketplace. And step 4 is the trace, carrying the graveyard in your bones so that when you re-engage with your routines, you know your choices actually matter. You don't build a house in the graveyard, you let the rupture reorient you, and then you go back to living. We've just seen how flawlessly our cognitive biology and our social architecture are designed to make us forget the ultimate reality of our own mortality, purely so we can function. But that brilliant design leaves us with one massive, lingering question to chew on. If our minds and our societies are this incredibly good at hiding death from us just so we can get through the day, what else about ourselves, our relationships, or our society are we structurally wired to forget the exact second we step back into our comfortable routines? Next time you catch yourself humming along to the elevator music, ask yourself, what is it trying to keep you from hearing? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.